Welcome to Conversations with Champions. My name is Johnny Randolph. I am a speaker, trainer, a podcaster, a renowned Toastmaster. And with me is my co-host. She is a photographer. She is an entrepreneur. She is the public relations manager for District 40. Debra, say hello to the people, ma'am.
Hello to the people, ma'am. That's what I do.
All right. Now, the premise of our show is that normally we will watch a international speech contest, but this week we are going to deviate from that schedule. We are going to watch a speech, but it is going to be in a different format. We are going to watch a TEDx talk. And our guest for this episode of Conversations with Champions is a video game producer. He is a technologist. He is an entrepreneur. He is the CEO and co-founder of the Geekish Network, Mr. Charles Chuck Babb. Say hello to the people, Chuck.
What's up, people?
And how are you doing today?
I'm doing well today.
Now, what we are going to do is we are going to react to Chuck's TEDx talk. So we're going to get right into it and let's do it. Look at you smiling.
The possibilities of uncommonality.
I like it.
Just think about that. What does that even mean? The possibilities of uncommonalities. This is not a video game. It's a TV show. And notice this is like a team. You go into an exploratory place to discover new things. That is what technology development is. You're actually thinking of an idea and you launch this team off into an adventure to discover something new and be able to deliver it to somebody else. And if you notice from the image, you notice the core team's up front and they're talking with one another. They're building on something. But then there's me, the guy in the back.
Is that you?
That's not literally me.
Oh,
but you know what I mean in this metaphor. And the guy in the back is somebody that has a lot of ideas. He doesn't fit in the common culture of the guys up front, but he has ideas that can contribute to the team. If you notice right now, technology, the whole industry is being attacked about not being diverse enough. And so what they're going to do, they're going to rush and hire a bunch of minorities, women, other ethnic minorities, gender alignment minorities, and they're going to put them all into the same space and say, hey, we're diverse. We have a whole team of people. But then all the creative decision-making is from the core team of the 5 or 6 guys that make all the decision for the product. And then their product looks like this.
Cereal.
A bowl of cereal.
Bland.
You just pour it into a bowl, pour some milk on it, eat it, and go about your day. It doesn't have a lot of flavor and has very little nutritional value. And that's what we're stuck with in video games. And what I mean by that is most of your core characters look like this. This is what main characters look like in video game. Yeah. White men, pale to olive colored skin, brown hair, and brown eyes. And everybody wonders, why do we have the same main characters over and over and over again? Because the same group of men, similar backgrounds, similar interests, from music to sports, sit down in a room and say, what does this character look like? And they stare at each other and say, I got what this character looks like. It looks like one of us. That's what this character looks like.
This is pertinent to today.
Things start to fall apart. Because in America, Black African-American males, 18 to 34, play 30 minutes more of video games than anybody else. Followed by white men, then followed by a Latino group, which is drastically growing faster and faster. And Asians are the last, they're the 4th. But they are the 2nd most recognizable characters in video games as main characters. So, I talked to you about main characters, and this is why that we have the fault of main characters. If you look at the statistics, African Americans, Latinos don't have internet in their house. And that is the foundation. If you're going to learn anything in modern society, you either go to a library or you go to the internet. And most of us prefer going to the internet, unfortunately. And if they don't use the internet at home, how can they learn to be programmers? How can they learn to be designers? And how can they get comfortable with technology altogether? fortunate. I'm from a very uncommon family. We were the first Black family in my neighborhood, and I have a brother that's 6 years older than me. So at age 12, he begged and pleaded my parents for a Commodore VIC-20. And if anybody's on up what the VIC-20 is, it is the most awesome computer ever made. And especially when you had the tape drive. So my brother actually piqued my awareness of a computer. I knew what a computer was. I was playing with Transformers. But then he turned it on, and I watched him write his first program. And I saw 2 + 2 = 4. And I saw it run through, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. My father, knowing that I always do whatever my big brother does, made a chair for both of us so I can sit next to him and watch him program for hours. Nice. I guess it killed 2 birds with 1 stone or 1 bench. And my brother told me, hey, if you want to play the games that I'm programming, you have to program with me. And with that, my brother got lazy, and I was one looking at the magazine, punching in all the numbers. And anytime there was an error, he'll beat me up. But my desire to play video games was instilled into by my brother by making me program. And when my brother went to the military, he left another beautiful machine, a Commodore 128. And I had that machine, and I had my hands programming on it. He was in basic training, and I was programming, looking through all the books and magazines. So I took action. And then I was the kid that had all the video game consoles. An obscene amount of games sitting around my house, and all my friends would come over and play. So my retention and wanting to make video games actually came from my friends coming over, riding bicycles, hanging out with me, and we're playing video games, and I let them play some of the stuff that I'm making on the computer. But now I'm in the industry, my first job, and I'm the minority. I'm the uncommon person in the room. I'm in a room with 4 other white men that have been doing this for 10 to 15 years. And they're like, hey, why should we hire you? I'm a hard worker. I'm the Black Stallion. And that's what we have here.
Black Stallion?
Black Stallion. Like, okay, he's a hard worker. Do we want to take a chance on him? He's very different.
I like it.
He doesn't like the same things we like. You know, we like rock music. We grew up with Whitesnake, and he likes Public Enemy and rap music. We're so different. And then I told him, I'm a quick learner. It makes me a unicorn. So I can take anything you give me and apply it to myself and actually make it a part of the team. And I also like more than fried chicken. So
Lord.
Made me unique too.
They didn't ask you that,
I like steak. I like other things. I do listen to rock music. And then they realized that also I've seen Lego collection because I like designing. My first job was in production, and that means I look at a spreadsheet, but then I like designing, and that makes me the alicorn. I have multiple skills. I can learn a new skill on the fly, and they want to hire that person because that person can be applied anywhere the team needs them. They're the clutch player, as they like to say. And when you look around at Black people in technology, most of them are alicorns. You'll find out that it's a programmer that can also do 3D art. It's a 3D artist that does 2D art and animation. It's a tech artist, animator, and a designer. And they have multiple skills. And you ask them why, they say, we have to. To even be considered to be put on the team, we have to have these skills. But it's funny that very few of them are in the meetings that make a decision on if this game is good or not. So what we end up with is they have a person on a team that's either the strongest Jedi in the whole entire galaxy or the coolest guy in the whole entire galaxy. And that's all they know about that.
Which one are you? Are you Samuel or Billy D?
They just know he does his job. They go, what's up to you? He's cool. He's cool. Oh man, you see what he just did? Yeah, he's powerful. He's badass. He can do that too. And all you really want to be is just yourself. You want to be just a part of the team, and you want to bring your own personal culture into the team to tell the team how to be creative. Like when they make a stereotype character, you know, as the minority, you're like, that's such a bad move. They know how this plays out, right? We're going to get backlash on. They're like, no, that's how those people are.
Those people?
Like that. Like, no, they're not. You don't know what you're thinking about. And you just really want to be yourself. And when you make a video game, it's like making a master meal. You know, you love it for 2.5 years to 5 years, mostly for most video games. And so you have to pick all the right ingredients. And it's easy to go pick up a bowl of cereal, But when you need to pick a team that's diverse and ready, it's like picking the right ingredients. It's like listening to the fruit, feeling the vegetables, staring at the fish to decide which one's the best, which chicken is the best, what else I'm going to make with this. And then when you have the master ingredients, you can start working on your meal. But your meal can still be bland. And that's where you don't bring in the diversity of your population, of your team. You don't look for the uncommon things your team has that can share to build in the creative process. And if you did, you recognize those are the herbs and spices. That's everybody's culture. That's their gender alignment, their gender assignment. That's their ethnic cultures. That's everything, all their experiences they carried with them from the past that got them to that point where they're in the room and they have input. They want to say something in the meeting, but they're afraid because they're scared to disrupt the culture, what's common amongst everybody. We find comfort in commonality. And what we need to do as leaders is push our people to be more uncommon.
Yes.
What makes this difference? How can we make this better? What is wrong with this? Something's always wrong with something in technology. It's always breaking on us all the time. Even as we're developing, it's like it's broken. The game's broken today. And it's nothing new. It's something that just happens. Our narratives are broken. Our characters are broken. And how do we make them more real? Because technology is just an extension of us. Me saying I'm an iPhone user to a room full of people
Hear that,
means
Debra?
something.
iPhone.
All iPhone users like, yeah, I get it. I'm one of those too. I don't know about those Android
She's
people.
an
I don't know what
Android.
they're thinking.
See,
I like it easy.
She's an Android user.
But it's an extension.
I
We're
am.
cyborgs that way.
It's
And
so
we like to
fast,
say,
it's
I
changing.
like this. The Last of Us is one of my favorite games. And for gamers, that means something to them. And I identify with that. So after I identify with that, and I think about it, we have the cereal again. And that's bland. Everybody can eat it. Everybody take it. It has no personality. It truly has no flavor. It has no nutritional value. It's not something that soothes your soul. It's not something, you don't hear people saying, yeah, I eat cornflakes, man. I eat cornflakes. Man, that Captain Crunch. I'm all about that Captain Crunch. Nobody brags about the cereal they eat. And that's how we look at our technology. Nobody's going to talk about it. It's the same people make it over and over again. It's the same things over and over again, slightly different. But then we have another bowl of gumbo. Where you had great gumbo at a restaurant, the first thing you do when you go into the office, and I went to this gumbo place, and the gumbo was delicious. It was awesome. Oh my God, I have some home. It's in the freezer right now. And gumbo's a unique dish because you put things in it, you take things out, you add more flavor to it. You can throw almost any piece of meat in it if you want to. And you cook it, you can eat it cold, you can eat it hot. And that's what we need to look at when we develop things is, am I involving enough people? Am I trying to find what makes us all different and trying to incorporate those differences into my product so it resonates with everybody? And that's what we need to constantly be working on, is find out what's uncommon about us and make that part of our community and not the common elements that make us commonly united. And when I speak of alicorns, I want to give a shout out to Jerry Lawson. He is the father of the video game cartridge. He's also the head designer, the head engineer, the chief engineer, and head of marketing for Fairchild Semiconductor's video game division. He created the Fairchild Channel F console, which is actually the beginning of the video game era. And with that, video games, personal computers are able to get more and more powerful because video games demand power, they demand better graphics. And that's why we're capable of having a computer in our phone. The iPhone came around because of apps, and the apps that need to be pushed more power than anything else are video games. So this man who was definitely an alicorn in the mid 1970s, when there weren't many Black engineers, decided to say, hey, not everybody can afford to have a big box in their house to play video games out of, but let me think of this little thing I can put on a cartridge and it can slide into a machine and make it work.
Nice.
And that's where the video game industry took off. And if it wasn't for him, we might not have Steve Jobs or Steve Wozniak. He was one of the founding members of the Homebrew Computing Society, Computer Club. And they came through that. They were under his tutelage.
Nice.
And we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for him to think outside the box.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yay. Very nice.
All right.
It's the first time I saw that.
It is? You didn't watch your own
Did,
talk?
I
did
never
you
looked
tear
at it
up a bit?
again. Man, I never looked at my own talks again.
Chuck, the first question that I want to know is, how did you come about procuring a TED Talk? We've had some
Yeah.
guests on here before, and they talked about, one person said they submitted over 100 applications and got rejected. And finally, on their last one, they got accepted. So I'm interested in, what is your story? How did you procure your TED Talk spot?
So I'm also part of another program. It was called the Downtown Project, and I actually was part of the Catalyst Creative Group. And every month in Vegas, if y'all don't know, the Downtown Project was owned by Tony Hsieh. He's the person that created Zappos. And when he sold it to Amazon, he decided to buy 300 acres of downtown Las Vegas to create a utopian society. That was his goal when he was alive. And he's a Burning Man burner. So he had this tiny home community built there on the hotel. Zappos is headquartered there. So he had his employees work around, had a container park for shopping, and a lot of things were made there. He created a place called Stitches, where it was for people that wanted to learn how to do fashion and sew. And everything was in one location, and it was like a co-op for stitching. He had a marketplace where, like, health and benefits, they were doing science with smoothies and acai berries and all kinds of things. It's really interesting. And he had this group called the Creative Catalyst Group. And there are people from around the world that would come together once a month. Different sets of people come once a month, and they would sit and talk. And people would give speeches about who they are or what they do. And I went to my first one, met a bunch of interesting people, loved it. And they were like, "Hey, you want to speak at the last one?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll speak at it." Because they said the theme is you and I verse. It's like your version of the universe. Tell us about that. There was this young man named DK there. DK lived in New Zealand. DK, if I'm correct, is from Scotland, and he lived in New Zealand. And DK gave one of the best speeches I've ever heard in my life. He had me so energized that he selected me. He nominated me to speak at the last one. So I spoke at the last one. He also ran TEDx in New Zealand. Then one day he said, "I passed your Catalyst talk around the people here. The New Zealand government would like to fly you in
Oh,
to do a TEDx
nice.
talk."
Wow.
And I was like, "Sure." He said, especially the ambassador from the United States.
Wow.
And
That's
so
very
that's how I got my
cool.
TEDx talk.
Very cool. So
Off
this
another
took place
talk.
in
Off
New
another talk.
Zealand.
Yeah.
In New Zealand.
New Zealand. It took place at Park
Nice.
Road, which, if you didn't know, is Peter Jackson's office. People have
Oh,
never been into it. It's the first time they ever opened it up to the public. That
Wow.
room that I gave the talk in is the theater room that he watched all the Hobbit movies out of.
So the word alicorn, is that a real
Hmm.
word?
That
Or
is
did you
a
make
real
it up?
word,
Okay, I'm gonna have to look it up. But
alicorn.
I like that you did the transition from a black stallion to a unicorn to an alicorn. What do you feel are some ways that people in general, in whatever field they are, can be more of an alicorn in their daily lives?
I think a lot of people have a lot of good skills. They just don't know how to tool them in all their situations. Like, I tell people all the time, "Give me your resume. I'll find a million skills in here that you didn't even see." I just ask questions about it. And I think people take for granted the things they have. So I tell people all the time, just start stitching things together. Things don't have to be the same color to match.
so Chuck, take me to the point where you receive the notification that you are accepted to the TED Talk till you actually hit the stage. What are your preparation habits for giving your talk?
I initially think about what I'm going to talk about first. And, me and DK talked about it for a while. That is his name too, you all. D and a
DK.
K.
Oh,
That's it? Just
That's
DK?
it. That's his name, DK. Oh, you ask him what's your name? He says DK, D and a K. He actually owns D and a K.
Wow.
He's a professional speaker, and he teaches people how to speak.
mm-hmm.
And he's dope. He's always done TEDx talks. So he was like, "I'd like for you to come to New Zealand and give a TEDx talk." And I was like, "Okay." And I've talked about it, and I gave people your Callous Creative Talk, which is about my past, my path in my universe. And he said they really liked it. But we want to do something different. We want to put around your career. What's it like being a black man in video games?
Mm.
Wow.
I said, in New Zealand? He said, yes, I think this is a TED Talk that people need to hear. And I was doing the slideshow. And as I do the slideshow, I think of the story I do. I try to do everything like Pecha Kuchas. And if
Oh,
y'all are
whoa,
familiar with Pecha Kucha,
you got to explain Pechacuchas to me and my audience. Then you can go
Spell
on with your story.
okay. Pecha Kuchas is a 20 slide show usually in Japan. And it's like the image pops up and you have like 10-20 seconds to talk about the image and go to the next one. And you do it to a rhythm.
Oh.
And you tell a story that way. They're fun. They're great.
Okay.
Okay.
And so I was thinking Pecha Kucha. So I don't normally write my scripts down. I put notes in the slides. And I don't put a lot of notes in there, just key words. And the image on the slide is what guides me.
Okay.
So you see me look down, I'm looking at the next image and I remember what I'm supposed to say. And I practiced it. We went through it twice and I practiced it. And after that, that's when I went through and practiced on the day before my talk. I went through and practiced it like 6 or 7 times to get
Okay.
the pacing right.
So you gave us your story
Mm-hmm.
and you talked about the diversity of teams and
Mm-hmm.
you likened it to a master meal. Who
Mm-hmm.
doesn't like to eat? I like to eat. And
Yes.
currently, Johnny knows my goal is to live to be 120 years old. But that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
include, I mean, that doesn't mean that that's going to be all bland foods and things or whatever. I
Mm-hmm.
love spices. So having the diversity of a team, you liken to the spices. What are some ways that we can personally add, I'll say, spice or diversity to our own personal teams, like in life in general? What would you recommend?
Ask the questions that nobody asks questions about the people in your life.
Mm,
Actually get to know the people in your life. No.
okay.
So yeah, I think that's very important for people. Find out the things that you don't know about your friends, that they don't, that makes them different from everybody else in your group, and love them for
Okay.
those things.
Good stuff. Now, how many people, or approximately, because I know you didn't count, but approximately how many people were in the audience when you spoke? Do you recall?
I don't recall. I want to say like 200, 300.
300?
I
Okay.
think so.
And you said you practice around 6 times in total. You practice in front of people, but
Mhm.
how did in your preparation habits differ from being in a large audience, in front of a large audience? How did it influence your presentation and
Oh,
delivery?
you know, it's hard not to stomp when you're on the jumbotron. And so, in the words of the great old Kanye
Kanye
West,
West,
in
Lord.
the words of old Kanye West. So, in the audience there, local, I think it was like, think 200, 300, because they had the courtyard as well, but they had it in every public venue in New Zealand.
Oh,
They were showing it. I do good in front of people. I turn into the class clown. I turn into a good time Charlie. And I had to contain myself because I wanted to be that there. And I was like, be professional this whole entire time. Don't say something outrageous right now. Be professional.
okay.
Cool.
I'm going to follow up with one other question. Storytelling, it's always a way to connect with
Mhm.
audiences. It's also a great way to express and articulate complex thoughts and ideas.
Mhm.
You gave a story on a very complex idea, which is diversity, inclusion, really what diversity, equity, and inclusion before it was really called diversity, equity, and
Mhm.
inclusion.
Mhm.
You chose to tell a story about the relationship with your brother and how that influenced your passion for technology.
Mhm.
What made you choose that story, and how important? Well, what made you choose that story to help with this message that you wanted to convey?
Um, Jerry Lawson. I had the privilege to interview Jerry for PBS.
Mm-hmm.
My first year in the gaming industry. They snatched me up, said, "You know who Jerry Lawson is?" I said, "No, I don't know who that is." They're like, "It's gonna be a treat for you. We want you to ask him questions." And I got to asking questions, and I was mind blown that this black man, meek black man, he was in a wheelchair at the time. It's like, "Yeah, I created the video game cartridge." And I was like, "Time out." He said, "Yeah, I created the video game console." Time out. What? He was like, "Yeah, I created the first one." And
Okay.
and it was shocking. And I'm in the room. It's a Black and Gaming, actually happy hour. Black and Gaming is an organization that we have in the gaming industry, and we were less than 3% of us. And I wondered, how do we go from creating something that basically spurred the whole entire industry to only being 3%?
Mm.
Mm. Wow.
And how did I end up in that room? And how did I end up talking to him? I had to attribute that to my brother.
Okay. Now, and I'm just gonna have one follow up, and I'll let you jump in
Mhm.
here after that, Deborah.
Okay.
So you incorporated elements of storytelling. You told the story about
Mhm.
Jerry Lawson. You told the story about your
Mhm.
brother, but you also backed that up with statistics. You had your graph showing the
Mhm.
households with African Americans, with internet. So I'm looking for, how do you decide the right balance of storytelling being supported by actual facts and data?
Oh, you don't have to tell a story with facts. You just to tell what they are.
Mhm.
And that allowed me to rest my brain a little bit. That was time to
The
rest.
story or the facts?
The facts.
The facts. Okay.
I could look at the facts and just point to them and say, "This is what's going on." There's so I could rest in and tell people, this is the situation. And I try to base the facts around the current environment.
Deborah, do you have any questions?
I do. I actually have two questions. So you're speaking of storytelling
Mhm.
and finding the stories, and you mentioned that our stories are part of us, and that's why you didn't need notes to give your speech.
Mhm.
My question is, how do we dig deep to find those stories or remember the stories for what we're giving? Or how do we, like you said, find the uncommonalities that can relate to a topic in order to give, to speak about it and make it make sense?
If you're asked to speak anywhere, ask the person who's hosting,
Mhm,
who are you speaking to?
mhm.
For sure.
And ask all the prying questions that make them feel uncomfortable.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
Ask them all the prying questions that make them feel uncomfortable. And they ask, "Are you trying to avoid that?" Like, no, I'm trying to dive into that
Okay.
because you want to push their thoughts.
Mm.
You want them to assume your shoes. And they don't assume your shoes because it's common. That's when they tone you out.
If people wanted to give a TED talk,
Hmm.
what is some advice that you would give to them to be effective at it?
Um, I would tell people practice more than I did. Number one, do that, do that. Practice more than I did. I was in a turbulent point in life at that time. Practice more than I did. Um, find topics that are near and dear to your heart, and make sure they're digestible. Focus on making it digestible. I went there thinking I want to deliver like James Baldwin would have delivered that topic. I don't have to sound like the smartest person in the room. I just have to make sure I'm the most understood person in the room. And I think that's what Baldwin does well. Baldwin doesn't use big glossy words, but everybody understands it when he walks out the room.
If you were to give another TED talk,
Hmm.
what topic would you like to discuss in that one?
Oh wow. Oh man. Whew. That's a good question there. I probably want to talk about how perspectives on life and how to surf through life and see positive things in everything. It sounds kind of flighty and whimsy, but it's not from that angle. I've had a very charmed life. Not every
Talk about it.
not every situation was charming, but I didn't let anything hold me down. But to me, I just laugh about it. I want people to know things, be aware. I don't want them to be willfully blind. I want them to be aware of things, but I want them to know that the universe is trying to work in your favor. It's trying to work in your favor. So make it work in your favor.
Okay. Miss Ham, do you have any
Okay.
questions?
Let's see. The question that came to mind is you spoke about your childhood and you
Hmm.
shared different aspects of your story. My question is, how did you find your voice? It sounds like you are a rambunctious child. Like you said, you crack jokes and everything, but your own personal voice, how did you cultivate that? Because as a speaker, we know that's very important and we always want to be our authentic self. So, how did you cultivate your or find your voice?
If y'all didn't know, Mr. Randolph over here, we've known each other for a very, very long time. I'd like to say I've always been this person.
Okay.
I was probably worse younger. I think I've calmed down over the years, but I don't know. I was always the weird kid. Um, and I had another friend ask me, "When did the first time you realize you were an alien?" And I said, "Second grade."
Mm,
And he said, why was that?" I said, "I walked in and had my first black school teacher, Miss White, and I realized I was different than everybody else.
yeah.
I was just happy being there in that room. And I looked around and I felt like, and I looked at everybody else. I'm like, I'm better than the rest of you all." And I've always had that idea. And I've held on to that. And everybody used to say, "You're weird." My mom and dad, you have your own, you dance to, you march to your own drum, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, so,
Yeah. So you
but
leaned into your you-ness, is what it sounds
yes,
like.
yes.
Okay.
I lean into it for protection.
Okay.
Um, Everybody says, "Why are you always happy?" I said, "That's my defense mechanism."
Mm,
People are scared of happy people for some reason.
As a speaker and
Hmm.
a creative,
Hmm.
what do you think is the most important trait that either of those should possess from your perspective?
A lack of fear.
Mm.
A lack of fear. You have to exercise your ideas. And the only way you exercise your ideas is throw them out there to get beat up on.
Based on what you said about women presenting their ideas, I
Hmm.
have a question here. It says, how can leaders cultivate a better culture of speaking up when things are uncomfortable? So you said you have to present your ideas,
Hmm.
but like in the Star Trek picture, if I'm just the person in the back and I'm waiting for my turn to be heard, how can leaders cultivate a space where others are heard? Because
Hmm.
a lot of times women or others may not speak up because when they have tried, they have been pushed down or whatever. So, how can that? I lost my question.
No, no, no.
How?
I get it. How
Okay.
can they garner the space?
Yes.
Tell people that you need the space.
Hmm.
Like, look, I feel like I'm not getting any space here.
Okay.
This is my idea to what was said. I would like to say it in the spaces in which you say our ideas. Feel as though we have to cultivate spaces for people and you have to ask for your space. And it's only human of you to ask. Don't think that people are being nefarious against you because they're not letting you speak. They're used to being in
Hmm.
spaces where people demand and fight for space.
That makes
And
sense.
they've been in places where they felt minimalized and
Hmm.
hate that feeling. So you let them know that they made you feel that way. You let them know that. You don't hold
Okay.
it against them. You're like,
Okay.
it's whatever, but I'll let you know I felt this way, but this is what I wanted to say in that space. And you didn't allow me to say it. And it's a better idea than everybody else in this space.
Mhm. I like it. I
Okay.
do.
And don't let this
Close.
happen again.
Don't let it happen again.
Don't let this happen
Put your
again.
foot down.
Yeah, you kind of have to put it that way. Like, don't let this happen again, because you control that space.
Right.
You're the facilitator. Facilitate. Do your job. When I hold a meeting, I facilitate.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, that's my performance review to you for that 1 point today. We'll see if there's a new one tomorrow.
Wow. Well, this was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to start with you, Deborah. Where can the people find you at?
People can find me online on most channels at Debra Ham Photo. That's DebraHamphoto. I'm a bit out the game, but I'm there. I lurk. I look. So
Okay.
send me a message.
All right. Chuck, where can the people find you at, sir?
Across most socials at Charles Babb. That includes LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Discord. No, Discord, Sir Charles. And for PlayStation, it's Sir Black Charles. And I think it's Sir Black Charles for Xbox too.
Okay. Good stuff. And you can find me at the Randolph Speaker Bureau across all social media. You can also find me at randolphspeakers.com. And also, if you like what you are seeing here, all of this fascinating and great content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can know when we publish new content. Again, thank you to my wonderful co-host, Ms. Debra Ham. I appreciate you for coming out. And
My pleasure.
also, Chuck, thank you for sharing your message of inclusion and diversity with us. I appreciate that, good sir. All right. Well, with that being said, we are going to head out. As I always like to tell everybody, please remember to be your best, to be inspired, to be great. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.